many people who come to us are sick, and some have cancer. And some come to us when they get cancer, and they've been given the alternatives of what the world would offer, which is surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And then they have a look, and I must certainly add that sometimes surgery may be necessary. But in many cases, people have a look at what's to offer, and they look at the side effects of chemotherapy, they look at the side effects of radiotherapy, and they think, sometimes the cure, is worse than the actual disease. But unfortunately, many people don't know what else to do. Elizabeth Cott was having pain in her abdomen. Elizabeth Cott was early 60s. She went to the doctor, he did a scan, he said, "You have 3 tumours in your abdomen." He said, "They're very aggressive. I suggest that you begin chemotherapy immediately. That will shrink the tumours, and then we possibly will be able to do surgery." She said, what it is a good thing to say, "Thank you so much for your advice. I'm going to go home and seriously consider this." That's why it's very important to consider your options. She went home considering. And a friend heard about it. A friend visited her and said, "Elizabeth, I don't know how open you are to this, but there's a lady named Barbara O'Neill. She has a health retreat. And she shows ways that you can conquer cancer." Elizabeth was interested. Elizabeth had a look. She booked in the next day for 2 weeks at our retreat. She came to our retreat. This lady's a vegetarian. She doesn't do much exercise. She doesn't eat meat. She doesn't have caffeine. She doesn't have alcohol. How could she get cancer? Isn't she doing everything right? When she listened to the lectures, her eyes were opened. Are you finding the lectures are like a mirror? And we need to know what cancer loves so we can stop it. We also need to know what cancer hates, because we want to give it, is that right? She discovered that cancer loves sugar. The fact is that a cancer cell consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell. At the end of the lecture, she said, "Oh dear." I said, "What is it?" She said, "I used to make I don't know if you're familiar with pavlovas. I think it's an Australian dessert, but it's egg whites beaten with sugar and then slowly baked. So it's like, I think you'd call it a meringue, is that right?" She used to make pavlovas, like meringues, and she used to make them this big. And on top, I think you put whipped cream and fruit, something like that. So she'd make a pavlova. She said, "I would put 16 cups of white sugar into a pavlova this big." She said, "I believe that I have just been feeding my cancer." Cancer also loves an acid environment. And guess what is the most acid substance you can put into your body? Refined sugar. Nothing wrong with the sugar cane. All those minerals alkalize it up, but when they extract the sugar out of the sugarcane plant, it becomes a pure acid. Dr. Yudkin, he wrote a book called Pure, White and Deadly on sugar. In fact, one of the chapters in his book, he claims it should be banned. It is so dangerous. How could something so sweet be so bad? Sugar also loves a no oxygen environment. So what does cancer hate? Cancer hates it when you stop the sugar. or stop all glucose. Cancer is not happy when you create an alkaline environment in the body. And cancer hates oxygen. Let me show you why cancer cells love glucose. This week we've looked at this a few times. Here's the cell, the central business district of the human body. The glucose goes in. It goes through a 20-step pathway. And this 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. We'll just call it the P. It's the chemical form of glucose that gets fed into the 8-step pathway. This 8-step pathway is called the powerhouse of the cell for good reason. It delivers 36 units of energy. Whoa! What makes the difference? It's oxygen. This is the pathway that uses oxygen. This pathway uses no oxygen. This pathway, this 20-step pathway, is also a very fast pathway. So it's consuming a lot of glucose. So basically, this is a cancer cell. You will find many people who are, I always say, conquering cancer, no matter what stage. Not suffering from, not being taken down by, conquering cancer. You will find a lot of them have no energy. Very little energy, because a lot of their cells are running up here. That's where the cancer cells run. And that's a very fast pathway, so they're going to be eating up 15 times the glucose. And they don't need oxygen to run. So let me show you what Elizabeth Cott did. Elizabeth Cott came to me and said, anything you say, I will do. Oh, I love it when people say that. Anything you say, I will do. So I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to starve that cancer. How do you starve it? To starve it, you've got to know what it loves. It loves glucose. And so we suggested 6 weeks, no sugar, no honey, no sweet at all. What's she going to eat? There's a lot of vegetables. There's a lot of legumes. There's a lot of nuts. There's a lot of seeds. So you can get a lovely variety. Some people that come to us, they decide to make Monday lima bean day, Tuesday lentil day, Wednesday organic tofu day, Thursday black-eyed bean day. There's so many that you can have a different one every day. And so many different vegetables. She also had to check her house to make sure there was no contamination with mold. You see, mold loves sugar. It loves a damp environment. And the oncologist, Dr. Tullio Simoncini, has written a book. It's called Cancer is a Fungus. Oh! He found, as an oncologist, every single patient that he tested had some form of candida in their body. And he was getting 90% success rate. He would get the most alkaline mix called sodium bicarbonate, and he would get a portacath, put it into the body, and when he would inject sodium bicarbonate straight into the cancer. Because cancer cannot survive in the alkaline environment. It loves acid. I found out that Elizabeth Cott was very fussy in her house. But I also found that Elizabeth Cott loved cheese. A lady did our program. She said, I took my little daughter to the cheese factory. We saw huge big blocks of cheese and they were green. What they do is they cut the green off and then cut it up and package it. So it's very difficult to buy cheese without a fungus in it. So to starve the fungus, you make sure that it's not getting sugar. Now, one would say, but Barbara, doesn't every cell need glucose to run? It does. But the quick release glucose in your carbohydrates and your sugars, they basically just are feeding that. If you can make sure you've got heaps of oxygen in your body, the glucose from the lower delivery glucose fuels will get down to here. That's perfectly fine. Now, because cancer cells consume 15 times the glucose of any other cell, when chemotherapy goes in, they consume more chemotherapy than the other cells. That's how chemotherapy works. The unfortunate thing is some of the good cells are going to consume it and be killed as well. It's like, which cells are going to be killed the most? Obviously the cancer cells will, but some of the good cells also. Number 2. But before I move on from number 1, I'll define what she ate. She ate vegetables every meal. She ate half raw, half cooked. She had some seeds and nuts every meal. She had legumes every meal. And because she was such a good cook, it didn't take long for her to adapt and adjust and make magnificent food with her Polish recipes. She'd use coconut cream instead of cream. She would use coconut oil or olive oil instead of butter. She adapted her recipes and cooked beautiful food. Number 2, kill. I do think we've got to get away from the kill mentality. What we need to do when the body's not well is to work with the healing powers of the body. And God, in his wisdom and mercy, gave us herbs that will kill cancer and will not kill us. Isn't that good news? So what are some of the herbs? I define it in my book, garlic. Garlic is a potent fungal killer. And this is what Dr. Tullio Simoncini did when he said cancer is a fungus. Now, a person can have a yeast presence in their body and not have cancer, but if it continues, it certainly can develop to that, if it's given the right conditions. If it's given lots of sugar, acid environment, and not much oxygen. So garlic, olive leaf extract, grapefruit seed extract, also portiaco. Portiaco is a South American herb. Also some essential oils. And remember, essential oils are very, very strong. So you only have a few drops at a time. So the essential oils are oregano. That's quite a potent fungal killer. Also clove is a potent one, and thyme. These, they need to be alternated, because just as the microbes, the pathogenic microbes, the ones we don't want, the yeasts, bacterias, funguses, viruses, they also can adapt and adjust. And so my suggestion is a week on this, a week on this, a week on this, a week on this. So you're constantly adapting and adjusting. So just when the microbes might start to get used to the garlic, you stop it and start something else. What Elizabeth Cott did. Number 3, alkalize. So how did we alkalize? Can you drink sodium bicarbonate? All you'll do is alkalize your stomach. And you don't want your stomach alkalized, because your stomach should be acid to break down your food. That's the only part in the body that should be acid, is your stomach. If someone has throat cancer, stomach cancer, I suggest they do drink the sodium bicarbonate early in the morning and just before they go to bed, because sodium bicarbonate only alkalizes what it touches. The only other time that sodium bicarbonate might be taken into the body unless you're an oncologist like Dr. Tullio Simoncini and you can inject it in. The only other time would be to take it as an enema if someone had cancer in the lower part of their colon. Because remember, it just alkalizes what it touches. But what you can do, you can take foods and drinks that alkalize. And one of the most alkalizing drinks you can take is green drinks. Maybe about 4 cups of wild greens, blend it with 4 cups of water till the water's green, strain it, and then we give it to our guests who are here to conquer cancer. We give them a litre to drink all through the day. It just tastes like grass. So we usually put mint in it, or sometimes we'll put lemon balm in it, or sometimes we'll put lemongrass in it just so it tastes a little bit better. You can use chlorophyll, because these greens, they are so high in minerals that they alkalize. You can also take barley green. That doesn't look right. I think it's EY. Yes. Barley green. You can buy products called super greens, wheatgrass, spirulina, all the greens. The greens are incredibly high in minerals. They're alkalizing minerals, and when you drink them, it comes into the tissues and it alkalizes. The most acid-forming foods are meat, sugar, caffeine, alcohol. In my book, I've got a chapter called The Acid-Alkaline Balance where I list them. The most alkaline foods are your vegetables. So lots of vegetables. Eating lots of vegetables every day, no limit on the vegetables. Another thing we do to help alkalize is we do the sodium bicarbonate wraps. With the sodium bicarbonate wraps, we take approximately 2 kilos of sodium bicarbonate. You can buy it in 20 kilo bags from the produce store. 5 litres of boiling water and about 1/3 of a cup of lemon juice. And then we get towels. And then we wring the towel out and we wrap a leg and then cover it. Wrap another leg, cover it. Wrap the torso, so the whole body's wrapped in the sodium bicarbonate. And what happens in that hot, moist environment, and we cover with wool, you must keep it warm. I didn't know this for about a year, but it is demonstrated on YouTube. But it alkalizes through the skin. We also, at our retreat, have a hyperbaric chamber. A hyperbaric chamber, a hyperbaric chamber puts oxygen into the body. Henry's law states that under pressure, more gas goes into a liquid, and the gas is oxygen, and the liquid, of course, is the body tissues, the blood. So in this little hyperbaric chamber, it's like a little circular tent. We zip it up and pump the pure oxygen in, and they're usually lying in that for an hour. I know. So this is what we did with Elizabeth Cott. So you can see we're giving her all the conditions that cancer hates. So our aim was to create an environment in Elizabeth's body that cancer cannot survive. The body and the body alone is the effective healer. And if given the right conditions, it will. Number 4, balance. What do I mean by balance? Taking a probiotic. What a probiotic is, it's Lactobacillus acidophilus, bifidus bacterium. They're the 2 main healthy or friendly bacteria that lives in the gastrointestinal tract. And a proper functioning gut needs a proper balance. So when that's taken early in the morning, and ideally it's taken 3/4 of an hour before breakfast in a powder form, it'll go all the way down to where you want it to in the large colon. And if there are any yeasts, candida yeast getting out of control there, flooding the gastrointestinal tract with the good bacteria will bring it back under control. I also talked to Elizabeth whether there was anybody in her life that she felt bitterness towards. And sometimes, in some cases more than others, but in some cases there can be a spiritual or an emotional aspect with disease. I remember at one retreat, so what can you do if you've been through trauma, if you've been treated very, very badly? What can you do with that? And that is forgive. It's that there will be a judgment day. It's that every man will have to answer what he's done. Elizabeth Cott went back to the doctor 3 months later. Remember, she implemented everything. She was diligent. The doctor looked at her blood tests, looked at her, and he said, just keep what you're doing and come back in 6 months. What did he say on the first visit? You got to do chemo immediately. This is serious. She said, okay. After 1 year, she had another scan. Tumour was totally gone. After 6 weeks, Elizabeth Cott started to implement a little bit of fruit, a little bit more carbohydrate. She was very diligent. She would ring me, Barbara, am I right? Will I do it this way? I said, well done, Elizabeth. I think it took about another 10 months. The other tumour had gone. She's lost weight. She's off her blood pressure medication. She doesn't have her sleep apnea machine on at night anymore. She said after the second tumour went, her husband just came in and smiled and just touched her. He's got his wife back. He's not going to lose his wife now. It's 5 years later now. Elizabeth Cott is giving lectures. She's giving cooking classes. She looks amazing. She said, I feel better now than I felt in my 40s. In every case, there can be slight differences. With breast cancer, it was absolutely essential that she balance the hormones. You cannot get cancer in the ovaries, the uterus, the breasts, if the hormones are balanced. So with all cases of reproductive cancer, must balance the hormones. Also with breast cancer, it's important to make sure what's touching the breast is natural fibre. I challenge you ladies, try and find a bra made out of natural fibre. And the underwire bras are dangerous because breast tissue is lymphatic tissue and it cleans into the nodes under the arm. And there's a very effective gate there that stops that cleaning process. Can you see how there can be many factors coming in? That's why every case is different. Every case, the detective hat has to be put on. Look at the history, look at the emotions, look at the house they lived in. One lady, only 35, she came to us very advanced cancer. She only lived another 3 months. She was living in a mouldy house. She had no idea that the mouldy house could be contributing to her cancer.